Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka nabina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, brothers and sisters, this is the Ramadan of different. Ramadan this year has been very different, and a number of the things that we normally would do and the way that we normally would do them have been impacted by the circumstances. And among the things that is likely to be impacted for many of us, if not all of us, is Salat al-Eid. The Eid prayers this year will be very different. And for those of us who are still under lockdown, shelter in place, stay-at-home orders, we will not be able to offer Eid congregationally as we customarily do. And so that brings the question, which is on everybody's mind, or most of our minds, is that if we're unable to offer Salat al-Eid in congregation together as Muslims, as a huge group and party as we normally would do, can we offer Salat al-Eid in our homes? And if so, what would that look like? And so I thought it would be prudent for me to speak to the issue of offering Salat al-Eid at home and the rulings and regulations of offering Salat al-Eid at home. Now, I sincerely hope, as I'm sure many of you do, that this information I'm going to give tonight will be moot. By the time Salat al-Eid comes, which is only a few days away, we are prayerful and hopeful that this information will be moot. It will be not needed. And we actually will be able to go back to our masjid or our respective masajid, or to a musalla, a place outside where we can pray together. We hope that will be the case. But whether it is the case or not the case, regardless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects that when this ritual ends, when this blessed month ends, He expects for us as Muslims to magnify Him with prayers and takbir. As He says in the Quran, وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. For you to complete the period of fasting and to magnify Allah with takbir for that to which He has guided you, and so that you would give thanks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of Ramadan wants to be magnified with prayers and takbir. And so if we're not able to do it collectively, congregationally, and we're going to do it at home, we need to know what that should look like. And so inshallah ta'ala, we want to speak tonight briefly about Salat al-Eid at home. The first issue related to this matter is Hukm Salat al-Eid, the ruling of Salat al-Eid. And this is important for us to know, because we need to know, is it something mandatory, obligatory, something that we have to do, and if we don't do it, we'll be sinful? Or is it something which is highly recommended, meaning we should do it, and we should not leave it off without a good excuse, but if we do leave it off for whatever reason, we will not be sinful in the sight of Allah? And the answer is that, according to Imam Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmad, in one of the versions or one of the opinions attributed to him, Salat al-Eid is mustahabba. It is highly recommended and it's not obligatory. And they support this by the fact that it was the Prophet's regular practice without fail to offer Salat al-Eid on the two Eids without fail. But there is no specific evidence that he ordered that it be conducted in the sense that he made it mandatory. And they say what evidence is presented is an indication of istihbab, an indication of recommendation, and not obligation. The second issue is, where should Salat al-Eid be offered under normal circumstances? And the answer is that under normal circumstances, Salat al-Eid should be offered in a musalla. What is a musalla? It is a place other than the masjid, outdoors, designated for prayer. And this is where Salat al-Eid should normally, ideally, be offered. But it can be offered in the masjid if there is a good reason to do so. And the scholars of Islam who hold this opinion are the majority of the scholars. And this includes Abu Hanifa, Malik, and Ahmad, rahimahumullahu ta'ala. And they support this by the regular practice of the Prophet ﷺ, who invariably, whenever he offered Salat al-Eid, would go out into a sahara, go out into the open area, some open field, and would offer prayers with the Muslims outside the Musalla. And the only exceptions to this was when there was inclement weather like rain, wind, etc. So the regular practice of the Prophet ﷺ was to offer Salat al-Eid in al-Musalla and in the masjid if he was unable for whatever reason to offer Salat al-Eid in al-Musalla. Also As-San'ani rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions in his book Subul al-Salam an athar, a report that Ali radiallahu anhu, when he was the caliph and it came time for Salat al-Eid, he took the people out to Al-Jabanas, to an open place called Al-Jabana. And he led them in Salat al-Eid in this open space. And he said, radiyallahu anhu, لولا أنها السنة لصليت في المسجد. He said, if it weren't the regular practice of the Prophet, a sunnah, to pray outdoors, I would have prayed in the masjid. The third issue, الثالثة, is now that we've established that the prayer should be offered in al-Musalla or in the masjid, can we pray it in our homes or wherever we may be? And the answer to this question will benefit not just the people who are under lockdown orders, shelter-in-place orders, stay-at-home orders. It will also benefit others. It is also something which concerns other people as well. The answer to this question concerns people, for example, a person who just forgot. A person wakes up on the day of Salat al-Eid and gets busy with different things. Maybe he has some important emails from work that he has to answer, and he gets caught up answering those emails. Or maybe he has to do some planning for different events that are upcoming, and he gets caught up in the planning for that. Or maybe one of his children is sick and he gets busy trying to tend to them and get them, situated and deal with their sickness, whatever it is. And the next thing he knows, he looks up and Salat al-Eid has passed him by. He just totally forgot. And by the time he realized the time for Salat al-Eid had passed in the masjid or in the musalla, etc. He just forgot. It also concerns a person, for example, who overslept. The person who slept in and then woke up, looked at his watch, oh my God, they've already prayed. It also concerns a person who is sick, too sick to go out to the musalla or to the masjid and join the Muslims in prayer. It also concerns a person who is traveling, a person who has some type of emergency travel. On the day of Salat al-Eid, something comes up and he has to travel on the day of Eid and is unable to offer Salat al-Eid with the Muslims. All of them are impacted by the answer to this question, can we offer Salat al-Eid at home? And the answer, or wherever we may be, and the answer is yes. That it is acceptable for a person with a good excuse to offer Salat al-Eid at home or wherever he may be. And this is evidenced by the authentic report on the authority of Anas, أنه كان إذا فاتته صلاة العيد مع الإمام جمع أهله فصلى بهم مثل صلاة الإمام في العيد. That it was the regular practice of Anas, radiallahu anhu, the Sahabi al-Jalil, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, that if he missed the Eid prayer for whatever reason, he would gather his family and pray with them in the same manner that the Imam offered the Eid prayer. So this was a regular practice of Anas. If he forgot, if he missed it, if he overslept, whatever the circumstances may be, he would gather his family and offer Salat al-Eid in his home with his family. Al-Rabi'ah, the fourth issue now. Now that we've established that it's permitted to pray at home, should we pray it collectively in congregation or should we pray it individually as individuals? And the answer to this question is that both are acceptable. It's acceptable for a husband, for example, to gather his wife, his children, and to pray and to lead them in prayer in congregation. It's also acceptable if they all have different, for example, schedules and are unable to pray all at the same time together, for them all to pray individually. Both are acceptable. But what is preferred? What is preferred is that they pray together congregationally. Why? One, because the report of Anas, that this was his practice. جَمَعَ أَهْلَهُ وَفَصَلَّ بِهِمْ. He would gather his family and pray with them collectively. And also it's supported by the hadith collected by Ahmed, Abu Dawood, and Nasa'i, on the authority of Ubay ibn Ka'b, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Salatul rajuli ma'ar-rajuli azka min salatihi wahdahu, wa salatuhu ma'ar-rajulayni azka min salatihi ma'ar-rajul, wa kullu ma kathara fahuwa ahabbu ila Allahi azza wa jal. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in this hadith, the prayer of a person offered with another is superior to his prayer individually. And his prayer with two people is better than his prayer with one person. And the more the number increases, it is more beloved by Allah, the Mighty and Majestic. So if they pray together, this is better. But if they pray individually, it's also acceptable. There's a note here, important point that I want to point out, is that the Athar of Anas that we mentioned a few moments ago, it indicates, because it says جَمَعَ أَهْلَهُ فَصَلَّ بِهِمْ مِثْلَ صَلَاةِ الْإِمَامِ فِي الْعِيدِ, that he would gather his family and pray with them the same way that the Imam would pray Salat al-Eid during the Eid prayer or in congregation or in the Musalla. That sets a precedent for us, or a standard for us, that when it comes to the prayer, underscore the prayer, that the same way that we would make it in the Musalla with the Imam on Salat al-Eid is the same way we should make it in our home. The prayer should be exactly the same. Mithla Salat al-Imam. He prayed it just the way his Salat mimicked the Salat of the Imam. So that means, and we're going to talk about this in more detail shortly, but what that means is that in terms of the number of takbirat, how many times do we say Allahu Akbar? Should we recite aloud or silently? How many raka'at? Should we pray 2 or 4, etc.? That should be the same as what we normally would pray with the Imam in the Musalla on Salat al-Eid on normal circumstances. Number 5, al-Khamisa, the 5th issue, is the timing of Salat al-Eid. What time should we pray Salat al-Eid? The scholars of Islam are unanimously agreed, regardless of madhab. Regardless of madhab, they are unanimously agreed it should be prayed, or the beginning time, the opening of the window of Salat al-Eid is Tulu al-Shams. Tulu al-Shams, when the sun rises high, the distance of a spear, and we leave what we call Waqt al-Nahi, the time where prayer is prohibited. That's the what they call Awwal Waqt Salat al-Eid. That's the first beginning time of Salat al-Eid. And it continues, that window stays open until Waqt al-Zawal, until the sun passes the meridian, or at the time of midday. So that time, that window right, Salat al-Eid. So from the time of Tulu al-Shams, the time of sunrise, up until right around midday. And that's unanimously agreed upon by the scholars, irrespective of madhab. Now, the point number 6. Point number 6 is, should a khutbah be given? And the majority of the scholars, among them Malik, Shafi'i, Ahmed, and others, are of the opinion that no khutbah should be given. That a person should suffice himself with the prayer and should not give a khutbah if he's praying in the home and not praying with the Imam in the Musalla. And the evidence that they use is the fact that in the Athar of Anas, when he was reported to pray at home, there is no indication that he offered a khutbah. Now we understand, Adam al-ilm laysa ilman bil-adam. We understand that the absence of knowledge is not necessarily knowledge of absence. We get that. That the fact that it doesn't mention that he gave a khutbah doesn't mean that he did not, for certain. We cannot say for certain that he didn't give a khutbah. But the general rule when it comes to ibadat is al-hadar, is that we err on the side of caution. And what that means is that we suffice ourselves with what we're certain of and what we can support by evidence, and we do less with certainty as opposed to doing more that we're not certain of, and we base it, or that's based upon the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa rad." Whoever does a deed, a religious deed, which we have not prescribed, have not legislated, have not authorized, then that will be rejected. And so because of that, we always suffice ourselves with what we can prove, what we can substantiate. And if there's any doubt in our mind whether or not this is allowed or acceptable, we err on the side of caution, we suffice ourselves with what we can prove, and we don't do what we can't prove. And in this case, we cannot prove the khutbah, and so we do not observe it. Last but not least, al-masala as-sabi'ah, the 7th issue, is how exactly should we offer Salat al-Eid, the Eid prayer at home? What should the Eid prayer at home look like? And we've already established that Anas ibn Malik, he basically tells us, or the Athar tells us, that he prayed the way the Imam prays. But how is that? Most of us, we pray behind the Imam. If somebody told us right now, hey, tell me what is the sifa, what is the description of Salat al-Eid, we might not be able to recollect that. So I'm going to give it to you ala ujala, briefly, in a concise manner. The first thing is we have to make sure the time. Make sure that the time for Salat al-Eid has entered. That's the first thing. We talked about that window, Tulu al-Shams ila Waqt al-Zawal, from the time of the sunrise until midday. That's the time. Make sure that the time is in before you offer the prayer. Second thing, there's no adhan and no iqamah. That the distinct quality of Salat al-Eid is different from the other salawat in the sense that there's no adhan, no iqamah for Salat al-Eid. The third thing, it is a 2-unit prayer resembling Salat al-Jum'ah. It is basically a sister of Salat al-Jum'ah. It looks just like Salat al-Jum'ah except what? Except for one thing, which brings us to the fourth thing, that this Salat al-Eid, has additional takbirat, what we call takbirat al-zawaid, the additional takbirat. And we're going to talk about that shortly. But that's the one difference between this prayer and Salat al-Jum'ah. So they look just alike. They're observed and performed just alike, except what? Takbirat al-Zawaid. What are Takbirat al-Zawaid? Basically, in the first rak'ah of Salat al-Eid, you'll make 7 takbirat. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, 7 times in the first rak'ah. In the second rak'ah, you'll make 6 takbirat. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And that 6 includes takbirat al-intiqal, the takbirah of transitioning from sujood to what? To al-qiyam. So when you go from sujood to qiyam, you say Allahu Akbar. And then you add 5 more for a total of 6 in the second rak'ah. Now pay attention, because a lot of us, this will be our first time. We've never led Salat al-Eid. We've always been behind someone who led Salat al-Eid. And so we may get confused. We forget how many takbirat did I say? We may forget the takbirat altogether. The takbirat is zawaid. Know that these takbirat are sunnah, brothers and sisters, which means if for whatever reason you don't make them, or you forget how many you made, or you're certain that you made less than you were supposed to, or more than you're supposed to, that will not impact the salat in any way, shape, or form. The salat will be valid, it will be acceptable, because these takbirat are sunnah, walaysat wajiba, and they're not something which will impact the validity of the prayer. The next thing is that for every takbirah, you should raise your hands. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And there's no dhikr between the takbirat. You just say the takbirat and there's no dhikr between them. And then the next thing, item number 6, is that when you recite, you should recite audibly. Just like Salat al-Jum'ah, you recite out loud in Salat al-Eid. And the last thing which is important to mention is that when you recite in Salat al-Eid, you should recite in the first rak'ah, it's recommended to recite Surah Al-A'la, the 87th surah of the Quran, Sabbih isma rabbika al-A'la. And in the second rak'ah, you should recite Surah Al-Ghashiyah, the 88th surah of the Quran, Hal ataka hadithul Ghashiyah. Now, this is recommended and not wajib, not mandatory, which means if you don't know the surah, recite a different set of surahs. All of that is fine. This is just recommended. And with that, we conclude our discussion on the ahkam, the rules and regulations of Salat al-Eid at home. As I said in the opening, we pray to Allah. We are prayerful and hopeful to Allah that by the time Salat al-Eid comes, we'll all be back in our masajid or in our musallayat, and we'll be praying together as a congregation the way we ideally should do. But these ahkam are here for us to take advantage of, should that not be the case. And in closing, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless your houses, to bless your spouses, to bless your families, to bless your children, to bless the rest of this evening, this blessed night, which could potentially be Laylatul Qadr, to help us all to fill it with prayer and with dhikr and with dua and with other acts of worship which will bring us closer to Him subhanahu. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who catch this night, فَغُفِرْ لَهُمْ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذُنُوبِهِمْ. So all of their previous sins will be washed away and forgiven. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who He will free their necks from the hellfire on this night. Allahumma ij'alna min utaqa'ika utaqa'i Ramadan. We also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who listen to the talk and follow the best of it, and to make us from those who He teaches beneficial knowledge and benefits us with that knowledge by making us from those who practice it. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbal Alameen, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak. عن نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.